What's going on? I'm your host, Colin Jobe, right here on REMIC TV. You got a special guest with us today, Timothy Barlow. Tim's a perspective coach and a columnist at the Vaughan Citizen. He writes an article called "It's All Good." Very interesting article. I've read it myself, and that's the reason that we decided to bring Tim on the show. So, Tim, I want to welcome you to What's Going On.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're gonna get right into the show in just a few minutes, but we're gonna take a quick break. I'll be right back to What's Going On.
It has never been easier to become rich by investing in real estate. Sign up now to attend the REMIC Wealth Institute's next free wealth building seminar in your area. It doesn't matter if you have good credit, poor credit, or no credit. You'll learn how to invest in real estate with no money down, no income, and no credit. Call 1-888-887-3642 or visit www.remiccorp.com.
Welcome back to What's Going On. I'm your host, Colin Jobe, but our special guest today, Timothy Barlow. Timothy, as I said before, was a columnist with the Vaughan Citizen, also a life coach and a perspective coach. Well, Timothy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's funny, we all have perspectives. I know I do. And I never thought of having a perspective coach. I've heard about life coaching, I thought about positive thinking, all that kind of stuff. But that really got me interested. So can you tell us, what is a perspective coach?
Well, a perspective coach, I am a life coach, but I've labeled myself a perspective coach. I coined the term.
You branded yourself as a perspective coach?
Yeah, because I like to feel that, different coaches do different things. I'm very much about understanding that instead of telling people, the right way to do life or a process, that they're supposed to go this way. I tend to be more about how do you see life? What is your perspective?
Oh, okay.
Why do you have that perspective? Where did it come from? And ultimately, is it serving you?
Oh,
is it giving you the experience of life that you say you want? Because many people are experiencing life in a negative way, but they say they want positive results. And so my belief is that, well, then maybe how you're looking at, there's a saying that says how you're viewing the problem is the problem.
I hear you. So in other words, if your perspective isn't working for you, then it's time to change it.
And you first have to look at it.
You have to acknowledge it.
You have to see it. It all starts with awareness of it.
No, you're absolutely right. It's because, like I said before, we all have a perspective, but a lot of times we don't stop and think, hey, you know what? As Dr. Phil would say, how's it working for you?
Exactly.
Right?
To ask a question, could it be me? You know what I mean?
Right.
We're making it all about everybody else instead of saying, could it be me?
So you're saying, stop and look at yourself in the mirror.
And what do you think? What's looking back at you? And quite frankly, that's a difficult thing for most people, is to take a look and say, what's reflecting back at me?
You have to stop and think.
Right. And to entertain that the results that you're creating are more your own than they are the result of other people.
Oh, okay. So what kind of person seeks out a perspective coach? Is someone who's willing to change or open to change? Like the people.
Generally, I find people approach me when they have to.
Okay. All right.
I've had many people say they've waited 3 months, 6 months. I've read your articles for the last year, but they reach a point in their life where they need to.
So they realize that change is necessary.
Right. And that can be anywhere. I mean, I've coached people who are 15, and I've coached people who are 70.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I have
age.
I have mom at home, and I have vice president of major, blue chip.
And that's an interesting point you mentioned, because usually when you think of it, when I think of like coaches, you think of professionals, business people.
Right.
I know a lot of athletes are into coaching.
Right.
People along those lines. You don't think of so much the average person saying, you know what? I need help. I need assistance.
Right.
I need someone to tell me, especially in terms of life coaching. We hear a lot about it, but from my understanding, it's still undervalued.
Right.
And it still hasn't hit the average person yet.
And it's growing. I mean, as you refer to athletes and professionals, I mean, an athlete is trying, like a golfer, for example. He can't see his swing, and so he has a coach outside to say, hey, here's where you're swinging, here's where you're dropping instead of you should be up here.
So let's correct that.
So why don't we need that, individually in our lives sometimes.
Right.
Like, what am I saying? What am I doing? You know, how do I appear when I'm at a function or when I'm in business? You know, getting feedback from somebody else is really what it's about. Yeah, it's not criticism. It's not just, you know, say you're doing wrong, and it's just
being open to,
here's some feedback, and then like Dr. Phil says, how's that working for you?
right.
And for most people, the answer is not so good.
I hear you. I hear you. And so, a person's perspective, we all know that it can make a difference in your life, because how you see life is your life.
What you see is what you get.
And but for a lot of people, I think myself included, when you actually realize that, hey, something isn't working for you, I guess, like you said, people are forced to the edge. They're pushed to the edge in order to change.
Right.
And well, how do we alter that, where people start to think for themselves, hey, you know what, maybe this is something I need to look at?
Well, I mean, it does take a little bit of courage, absolutely, to...
Because you're acknowledging that what you're doing isn't working.
Right, and you know, I'm reminded, you know, I don't know your age, but I'm in my 40s, and back then we used to look at, we used to watch Happy Days.
Oh, okay.
And there was a scene where the Fonz, who's the cool one, and he never makes a mistake, finally Richie says to him, just say it, Fonz. And then he says, well, okay, I was rrr. And he couldn't say the word, which was, I was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know what, or at least I wasn't right, or I was only partly right. And that takes courage sometimes, you know, because a lot is on the line for people.
Correct.
What other people think, and, you know, and thinking that, oh, I have to live this life of perfect.
Right.
And that's just not true.
Right. Well, I'm in my teens, so I'm totally unaware of what you're talking about in terms of yeah. But okay.
You don't look a day over 20.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, but it's funny. You're absolutely right. It's important that we do sometimes fess up and say, hey, you know what?
We're not perfect.
It's time. We're not perfect.
It's
time to
condition.
change. It's time to change.
And
it isn't working for you.
Right. And there's a saying that says the truth will set you free.
Right.
And so when you're feeling, you know, bogged down, constricted in life, it's the truth that's going to release you from that.
Well, there's some people who believe that the truth sets you up.
And sometimes. Yes, it depends on who you're talking to. But again, that's all about perspective. Either perspective is actually correct. You see, if you think that the life is the world is a cold, cruel place and everybody's out for themselves, you're going to find plenty of evidence to support that. If, however, you think that, you know, people are genuinely good and you know, compassionate and understanding, you'll find evidence for that as well.
Really? So you have to. So you, I guess, is it trying to find a balance? Is it how do?
Well,
because it's not all. The world isn't all. Everything's not all great.
It's to take a look and say, what am I seeing? And then underneath that, I must have a core belief that is supporting that picture. Because somebody else may be saying a completely different thing. We see this in movies all the time, or if you go to a party. One person says, oh, I went to this party, it was fantastic. Another person went, it was horrible.
Right.
You know, like, it's like, were you watching the same movie? You know what I mean? You're side by side and you can't believe it.
Right.
So this is, you know, to look and say, it's the same picture going on in the world, but I'm having a very different experience. And that is because I believe something different.
Good, interesting, very interesting. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Timothy Barlow, and he'll tell us more about the wonderful world of perspective coaching and why we should all consider having a perspective coach.
Right.
So we'll be right back on what's going on.